Hi, everybody. I'm actually not a health and safety professional, but I guess when you have worked for the oil and gas industry for almost 30 years, it's so much part of your DNA that you kind of feel you are a health and safety person. So just quickly about LafargeHolcim, in case you don't know it, it's leading global construction material and solution companies. So it's coming from two major construction companies, one called Lafarge, one called Holcim, French and Swiss, who merged together about 4 years ago now. Now, we're in a very difficult market, difficult business, and I'm going to show you a little bit more about it. The big complexity of these two companies is the footprint. So we are dealing with 2,500 sites, 80,000 workers, and about the same equivalent number of contractors. I don't know if you have any idea what a cement plant looks like, but it's big. It goes up to 1,500 degrees. So huge challenge. Now, I arrived end of 2016, so I arrived here. We had made some good progress, but we were still at 17 deaths on site, which is actually the not bad, less bad part of the story. We had 65 deaths on road. So, and then few that are in another category. In total, we had 86 deaths in 2016. So why did I bring a non-health and safety person to try to solve that problem? I guess because health, no, I'm not going to say that, I'm going to make too many enemies, but I think at that point, they needed someone pragmatic. That's what my presentation is all about, pragmatism. Someone who was a true operational person. So basically, when I visit countries, when I talk to people, you don't get away with me by telling me, Magali, you don't understand. Magali, let me explain to you how field works. Magali, let me tell you what operations are. It doesn't work with me because I've done it. And I've done it for 30 years. And I've done it in Nigeria. I've done it in Angola, in China, in all kinds of countries where life is not that easy. So that's the reason why they brought me. I arrived end of 2016, had a strategy out in less than 3 months, which didn't work in 2017. As you can see, we were still on the plateau on site. But road, we attacked it immediately, and we started seeing some results as soon as 2017. Now, the idea is not to go into details of what we did on road, but the idea is to give more the philosophy. So what we started to do is we developed a strategy, which I guess everyone who arrives in a new company will develop a strategy to at least put a name on it. But what was a bit different on our strategy is how many people we involved. That actually putting the strategy together took us 2 weeks. Doing that took us more than a month. And what that is we ran mini strategy workshop with every single CEO of the company. So we are based in 80 countries. So we actually had a 1.5 hour workshop with each of them and their team. So I had everyone mobilized in my team doing only that for 2 weeks. But what it brought is an immediate buying from them because they felt they had been involved in putting together the strategy. We didn't come up with major changes to what we had prepared, but it was a huge buy-in. I mean, like most companies, health and safety is owned by the operation. So it's no point to make nice strategy slides, etc. at the headquarters if you don't get the buy-in from your local operation guys. So there was a huge, huge focus in doing that. Now the strategy itself, I guess is like any strategy with 6 pillars, talking about culture, talking about processes, etc. What we did was we made it a 2-speed. We say, 86 days, we don't have time. We don't have time to change the culture to wait until we kill less people. We need to stop killing people immediately. So that's why we had a pillar called on-site fatality elimination today, which was what do we do right now? But then we thought if we only do that, we might get some good results for 1 or 2 years, and then it will ramp back up immediately, which is what the other pillars are all about. How do you make the culture go, etc. Of course, health risk and road fatality. As you saw before, road fatality was by far the highest number. Just a little precision on the number side. It's always weird. I hate talking about fatalities, talking about numbers, but Unfortunately, we have to, the high number of road fatalities include pedestrians. I know many companies don't put pedestrians in their statistics. Actually, half of those deaths are pedestrians. We decided to count them because we feel that this is actually the worst people. I mean, the worst tragedy you can have. It's kids, people who are on the side of the road who have nothing to do with our business, who just happen to be at the wrong time, at the wrong moment when our trucks pass by. So, but the thing is, so it's nice to have slides, it's nice to have strategy, it's nice to have big topics, but the big problem is how do you make sure you're not doing a tick-the-box exercise? So actually when I arrived, Bosch legacy company had been working for like 10 years on their health and safety. They had standards, they had documents, they had safety moments, you name it. They are talking about health and safety all the time. I actually told them, stop, you talk too much about health and safety. Now, if we could stop talking about it and start acting would be nice. And that's what the strategy actually was all about. Let's stop talking about it because a lot of people thought that because they had talked about it, they had done the job, so that was okay. So the first thing I told them is from now on, we have 86 days. Everything we do, which is not going to make us stop killing people, we should stop doing. So let's stop those blah, blah, but I don't know what. It has to be effective. We know we have 4 main killers working at height, mobile space, confined space, mobile equipment, and energy insulation, which I guess is certainly shared by a lot of people in the industrial world. We concentrate on that, we work on that, and we don't work on all the stuff that is nice. I know trip, fall, etc. I understand it's important, but today we don't kill people doing that. When we finish killing people, we will start looking at injuries. I realize it's nice to work on both, but for me, we were in an emergency situation, and I wanted people to focus on what was important. That was the first point. The second point about talking to the target audience, I thought was very important because what was happening is I would say something, or even better, my CEO would say something, then the region head would say something, and then it would go to the country, and then it would go to the plant. So by the time you reach a worker, you know the worker is the guy who gets killed, right? It's not me, I don't get killed, neither does the CEO, neither does the plant manager. So by the time it reached him, it's a bit like the game we used to play, you know, the African Tam Tam or whatever it was called. Not only the message is distorted, but you have no clue how it was passed on. So, I don't know, I mean, in some countries, I would just send an email. Magali said, So that was a huge part on how to reach the workers. And this is why what you see here, it's actually standards made into cartoon. Simple, basic, easy to translate, no language barrier, and you can put them in posters. Good, you've got the green, we can't really see here, but green is good, red is bad. You know, can't get more basic than that. The third one, I like this one a lot. So I'm operation, and I remember when I was operation discussing with health and safety people who would tell me, you have to do that. Well, but if I do that, I stop my production. I don't care, it's health and safety, you have to do it. Okay, but if I stop my production, we go bankrupt. So we all got that, right? We all got that dilemma in production. Now, we have 2 ways to deal with it. The first way is to say, I don't care, I'm health and safety, I'm telling you to do it. If you don't do it, you're a bad person. And if someone dies under your watch, then you will be even more of a bad person because I've told you what to do. Or we try to understand the dilemma, we face it. We face it for real. So when a plant manager tells you I can't do the preventive maintenance that I was supposed because I have to produce, instead of saying just do it, just see if we can work together to find a way to do it on a safe way. And I'm not saying it's easy, but ignoring the dilemma is not going to solve the problem. Stop the rules that no one understands. I love that. The number of rules I see, which is like when you try to explain why no one can't. So credibility-wise, it's a disaster. So those are the health and safety people who understand nothing about nothing. Look at the rules they asked. So one of them is, I've put a drawing here. That was a pedestrian. The guy, what he wants to do is go from here to here, but the pedestrian tell him there. Now, what does the guy do usually? You think he's going to go around every time? Of course, he's going to cut. obviously. So now you have two choices. You decide to ignore it, again, is number 3, and you put a rule which is completely stupid that you have to follow it, and then you have done your job and you're happy, you go home and sleep well. Or you admit the fact the guy for sure is going to cross, so let's make that crossing safe. And then we are doing a better job. I know it sounds a bit silly, but it's actually a reality. Simple programs, big impact. I've seen some programs, I just couldn't understand them. And the last one was road safety. As I was saying, we had 65 deaths in 2016 in road safety. To put things in perspective, we have 150,000 trucks driving at any given time, all contractors, 95% contractors, and we do 2.5 billion kilometers per year. I calculated once how many times around the Earth that is, but that's a lot. So that puts things, yes, 65 deaths, but we do a lot of kilometers in countries where driving is not necessarily a safe thing to do. Now, when I arrived, they were looking at millions of things in the program, and then I look and say, okay, out of the 65 deaths, only one was related to the equipment. So forget the truck. I don't care. The truck can be as rotten as it gets, doesn't matter. No one dies from a rotten truck in LafargeHolcim, so I'm not looking at it. And the reason why I did that is because now if I tell all my guys we need good trucks, and they have to replace a fleet of 150,000 trucks, just guess what's going to happen next. So why fighting a battle which I don't need to fight, because my deaths are not coming from there. Now, the deaths are entirely coming from skills and behavior, about 50-50. So we entirely concentrated on two things: train the driver, monitor his driving, put the nice consequence management program that goes with it, reward the guy who can't drive, make sure he doesn't drive, and you monitor the driving so you know he can't drive. And that's it. So the entire driving program I put in place when I arrived, end of 2016, was train the drivers, monitor how you drive. Now, as we all know, the devil is in the details. When I said train the drivers, I had to stop all these programs of people who were showing some slides or putting people on some simulator and telling me they have trained the drivers. So we had to really specify that training the driver is only when you are inside the truck, watching the guy, and a truck, not a car, if you're driving a truck. I know it sounds stupid, but I've seen it. With a fail-pass test, and if you have less than 20% of people failing in countries where the driving license is not reliable, let's call it this way, then you are not doing a robust program. So again, just focus on these two things, and it had immediate results. Now, we did, in addition to that, few things on the side. We are playing with, we like playing with toys, so we are looking at digital, looking at things like drones to go inside silos, outside silos, whatever can stop people going up. Spigot is good practice sharing. We've had enormous success. It's a software that put good practices. Again, when we have 2,500 sites, it's not that you don't have good practices, you have too many. So how do you organize them? So it's a voting system. It's a bit like TripAdvisor. You get the best one at the top, etc. IVMS is the black box you put in the truck. And communication. I just want to go very quickly on communication. We overlook quite often communication. Like I was saying earlier, the way the communication was made was completely cascading. So we actually had a complete strategy on how we communicate, when and with who, and which vocabulary. So let's take the example. This is just the first slide. We had much more behind, but let's take the example of you have a fatality on site. What happened? Usually what the site is going to do, and rightly so, is going to look at every single thing that goes wrong in that site. So when you ask them what's your key lesson, they come back with a list of 20 things that have gone wrong. We are badly organized, authority, message from the top, everything, all the way to the bottom. Now, okay, good. It's good that the site is using this opportunity, obviously it's put in bracket, to improve. But how do I share that with the rest of the organization? What I want is, what do I tell the next worker I see so that he won't get killed the same way? I'm not going to tell this worker, you need to reorganize the site, you need to have the manager visit more, you need to do this. No. If the guy got killed because of a mobile equipment, he was working next to a mobile equipment or working on a mobile equipment and the guy restarted it, true story, by the way. Well, I'm only going to tell him a very simple thing is when you work on a mobile equipment, put the key in your pocket. Super basic, right? I mean, but that's all I want the worker to remember for that fatality. I don't want him to remember everything else. I just want him to remember the one thing that's going to stop him from being killed the same way. And it's really, and I think it's something that a bit too often is a bit missed. We tend to have a one-size-fits-all communication, which doesn't work, at least not in LafargeHolcim. Anyway, end of the suspense. 1 year into the program, or almost 2 years, on-site fatality year-to-date 4 from 17. So I touch wood. Sure. Okay, that's wood for sure. Obviously, we can't give result. We could have a terrible, disastrous Q4, but so far looking good. And road fatalities, we are at below 30 in Q4. So I'm not saying it's working. There's no magic trick. There's no magic in health and safety. We all know that. But I just wanted to show what we try to do to be extremely pragmatic, let's work with the operation, how we do it, and let's remove all the blah, blah, all the things that we do which don't bring much value. That's the end of me.